Hello and welcome to the second video in the Analyzing PowerShell Payload series. In the first example, we learned how to extract the C2 data from a standard PowerShell payload using Gunzip and from base64 within CyberChef. In this example, we'll be building upon the lessons from the first video to demonstrate some additional obfuscation techniques and how analysts can apply more functions within CyberChef to extract the C2 information. Again, I understand that there are various different ways to go about this to get the same data. This is just the way that I learned when I was first getting into it, and it was easy for me to understand, so that's the way I'm going to demonstrate it. Here we can see our sample actually comes from the Windows event log. This specifically is Windows Event ID 7045, which is massively important to defenders and incident responders. I wrote a blog about this on securityintelligence.com. Feel free to read it if you want to learn more about this. But here we can see that we have PowerShell running. We saw all of this before in the first one, and it's just telling PowerShell to start is hidden. And here's our next keyword that we want to tuck away in our belt of keywords. Dash encoded command tells PowerShell that the following information should be considered base64 data. So we can assume that every time we see that dash encoded command, we are going to assume that the data is base64. And from the previous example, we know that base64 we're going to apply from base64 in the CyberChef utility. Just like the first example, the first thing we're going to do is grab that base64 data with a regular expression so it's easy to work with and walk back. Remember, we changed this to list matches. And now we're going to do our from base64. We do that, we can see that, oh, this is sort of human readable. I can make out words like new object, IO, memory stream, and then convert from base64 string. That's a keyword from our first example. But I have all these dots, and what these are representations of null bytes. And the cool thing about CyberChef is that it has a remove null bytes function. So we can do this just to clean this up. Double click on this guy, and now everything looks a lot cleaner. If we start through here, we get to our keyword again from base64 string. So we know everything in between these parentheses is going to be considered base64 data, and we know how to handle that. Here we see IEX, which is invoke expression, the shorthand version, which means run this as an expression. Going through, and we get to our other keyword, gzip, stream, and decompress. So we know how to handle this exactly from the first one. We know that this means I got to do a from base64 and G unzip, right? So start from your obfuscated data and work our way outwards. So we want to grab this base64 again. So we're going to do another regular expression, same as before. List that out, and then from base64, and then we're going to do our G unzip. And now we have some human readable information. Just like the last time, this is stuff where it's, designating some functions and specifying some variables. Just by looking at this, you'll know as you go through this by default. So like when you see this do it and set strict mode version 2, as long as the person hasn't modified anything here, I know from doing all this all the time that this is the DKMC shellcode payload, which means it's don't kill my cat is what it's called. You can Google it. And it is a tool to obfuscate shellcode that's going to execute, but it's going to put it inside of a polyglot image. And it's a way to bypass detections because the images are 100% legit. So it puts some shellcode in there, and it's an additional obfuscation thing. But all of this looks like our previous example, right? And if we go down here, we can see, oh, I recognize this again, right? We got our byte array and our keyword from base64. So we know that this is base64 data. This is exactly like the first example. Okay, so I feel good about this, right? Everything about this makes me think that this is going to be kind of just like last time. So let's go ahead and do the same thing again. So we're going to do our regular expression at the end. We're going to grab our regex. list that out, and then we do from. Oh, so something didn't work, right? So something is different. So let's walk this back. Another reason why I like to do the regexes and why CyberChef is so good is I can easily kind of just walk this back. So let's go down here even further. Here's our next bit of, or our next keyword is this BXOR right here. So we know from this that there's a XOR being applied to this as a, you know, for every, it loops through and it says for every one of these, you know, items within this byte array, apply this XOR function, and the key is 35. So remember I mentioned before in the first video is like typically everything, all the information you need to deobfuscate the data is contained within the payload itself. So they are giving you, the key is defined here is 35. So we can apply this. So what we're going to do is undo that. We're going to undo this, and then we're going to do add an XOR, and our key is 35. We'll change this to decimal, and here we go again. Payload looks the same. Here's our user agent string that is defined, and here is our C2 domain right there at the end. So that is how you extract the C2 information from a PowerShell obfuscated payload that is using an XOR function to add an additional layer of obfuscation.